Hello, hello. Are we rolling? Are we going yet? I am about to talk about something that I think about on the regular. This is how I make sense of the world and my relationships and my actions. This is how I make sense of it. And I'm about to share how I think and what pieces everything together. Not everything. Some things are outside of this realm, which includes having fun and everything lighthearted and things that aren't tied to philosophy or morals. But as it is right now, this is my secret to life. So, this episode is going to be about the language of abuse versus the language of love. So, we have the language of abuse, right? We have, can you read it? We have abuse being addictive, love being sustainable, abuse being fantasy based, love being rooted in reality, abuse being reactive, destructive, selfish, love being actionable, creative, and selfless, abuse being manipulative, controlling, draining, disconnected, love being considerate, respectful, energizing, and faithful, abuse being fearful, confusing, insecure, and arrogant, love being courageous, understanding, assured, and humble, abuse being burdensome, stuck in the past and the future, grudge holding and taking, and love being lighthearted, present, forgiving, and gives back. Abuse having a mentality of never enough, outside sourced, falsified, and victim mindset. Love being appreciative, inside sourced, connected, and responsible. Abuse being easy but hard, and love being hard but easy. Abuse being urge oriented, cowardly, regurgitative, constricting, and love being resisting, brave, self expressive, and expansive. So let's start with the first three because they all kind of go together, which is addictive, fantasy based, reactive. Actually, I'm just going to go all over the place with this because it all ties in together and you'll get a sense of it because that's how connection is. If you want to connect with me and what I'm saying, you got to bridge that gap, baby. It's not all on me. Anyways, so love is sustainable, right? It doesn't ask us to do everything all in one go. It asks, can you try? Can you do a little bit? Can you take off bite-sized pieces? It's sustainable. It sustains us because it gives us energy. It gives back. Abuse is addictive and it's very draining and it says what you're doing is not enough. You have to do more. And love says it's enough. You've done your part today, you know? You can keep going tomorrow. And it's humble, it's realistic, and it's rooted in the present. When you're in the present, that's when you are offering solutions right then and there. And that's when you start to think more long term, more sustainably, because love is rooted in reality, in what's happening in the now. How can we improve it? How can we make it better? How can we be more connected? Abuse says, this is fine. This is fine. We're doing great. Abuse is arrogant. The language of abuse speaks in a falsified way. It's deceitful. It lies. It says, what we're doing is enough and not enough at the same time. You know, it's fine. I've always done it this way. I don't need to change. Meanwhile, everyone around is suffering, including them. Um, and it's cowardly. It doesn't want to face what is really happening. It doesn't want to face the reality. It wants to be stuck in the past or the future. It wants to hold on to ego, and it's scared. Um and it's outside sourced. So when I say the language of abuse is addictive, what I mean is when we need something on the outside to make us feel loved or sustained. Um, we need conditions, we need other people to act a certain way. That's where the controlling aspect comes in. That's where the manipulative aspect comes in, is when you're stuck in the past and you're so fearful that you will feel a certain way, even though what's happening in the present is not reflective of that kind of place that you were in. It's fantasy based. How many times has a person said to you, I'll do better? And they say all these things and they keep you attached, and then they don't do anything. It's not sustainable. They don't actually create a sustainable way to true love. And it's because it takes work. It's hard, but easy because it gives back. Meanwhile, the language of abuse is easy, but hard. You take the easy way in the moment, and it makes it harder for future you because you're stuck in the past and you're afraid of the future. And it's never enough. What you do is never enough when you're living in this fearful state, when you're living in survival, when you're trying to avoid because you're insecure. But love speaks the language of being assured and knowing that you have what it takes to make good out of your life. And it's assured in the sense that you will make the choice to do what's needed in the present. It's actionable, it's creative. You create a path towards love, towards what will make you and the people around you happier. It's humble, it knows the language of love is knowing that you're just a person and that it's not all about you. And that's relieving in a way. It's not so serious. It's not all hinging on what you're going to do. Your life is your life. And you might feel like other people's feelings rely on you and what you do, but everybody's feelings is their own. You just have your own feelings about what everyone else is doing. You just have your own feelings about what you're doing. But when you are actionable and creative, you can connect better. You can be connected, and you don't have to falsify or lie your way through connection with people because you're doing the work and you have evidence. You have evidence because you've done the things in the moment that put you closer towards the person that you know that you are. I feel everyone has a deep knowing, and sometimes it takes work to dive that deep, but we get closer. And everything that you practice is going to get you closer, even if what you're doing right now isn't the permanent state of self. Even if, I was talking to my friend and he said 10 podcasts, got to make it to the 10 mark because you might most podcasts die after 10. And I was like, yeah, well, this podcast has been improving my life no matter what. I got my ideals out there, and that's what's important. And you don't always know the ways in which doing things for the right reasons is going to benefit you. And it might not be what you do forever, but it's always going to bring you closer. The practice is always going to pay off in some way or another. Always. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Just wait. Be faithful. Be courageous. And another thing about the language of abuse is it's very victim oriented. It's very victim mindset. It's very well, you have to see where I'm coming from, and you have to understand that, I'm justified in this way that I'm acting. But love says, I'm going to create a path that ends this. Because there's no way to track the source. There's no way you want to go back where it started to justify your actions. You want to say, well, I reacted this way because this and this and this. It keeps going, dude. Trauma is generational. It will just keep going. You're never going to find the end towards what it is that you want to justify your behavior, because it's all a ripple effect. It's all dominoes. You're just one of the dominoes. But if you stand firm and you say, this ends here, this ends with me, I am the source, I am love, I'm going to love in this moment. And it's hard to understand that sometimes, but trying, being present allows us to try. It allows us to form a path that's rooted in reality. That's the language of love. It's realistic. It's what is happening right now and what can I do? And that's how you fight all your demons. How I fought my demons was not by saying, ugh, my messy room is just so horrible, and I hate this about myself, and I hate it. Was saying, okay, I'm discontent with the fact that my room is messy right now. What can I do right now to make it better? What do I have energy for? And then I did it. You know, it's blocking out the noise, and it's saying, what's right now? What is right now in the present? And it's the humility that it takes. Love, the language of love is humble. It's not insecure. Those are two very different things. Humble and insecure are two very different things, because insecure and arrogance are two sides of the same coin, right? Because to feed your insecurities, to soothe your insecurities, the easy way is to choose arrogance, right? But arrogance is this falsified thing. Arrogance is playing by the facade to make yourself feel better, to soothe. And that's why it's addictive, is because you need something from the outside to tell you that you are enough, or that you are this or that. You find your identity in what's outside. And that's where arrogance comes in. And that's what people choose a lot of the time to soothe their insecurity. But true confidence and humility are also two sides of the same coin. Because to be humble is to know that you have flaws, and to be confident is to know that you are working on them, and that no matter what, you're going to be better the next day. And I will say, I have a very hustle, let's go getter kind of personality, but rest is important. And humility can be really valuable in that moment too, knowing I'm just a human. I need rest. We can't always be on the go. We can't always, be working towards our future. But the language of love is appreciative. And in appreciating each moment that we get, we see the ways that we can improve tomorrow by making a choice right now. You know, I improve tomorrow by taking my trash out. I improve the rest of my day by cleaning my room now. These are just like minor examples, but it's that kind of two cookies later instead of one cookie now thing, where it might be easy to get the cookie now, but two cookies later is what you really want. Let's see, what else is there? Victim mindset versus responsible. So, like I was saying earlier, abuse is very victim oriented, but love is taking responsibility for the role that you play. It's it's responsible in the way that you know that there is no justification and there's another way that you can go. It's creative. Love is creative and it's expansive because every time you practice love, it expands you. Every time you speak the language of abuse, it constricts you. It makes you feel like you cannot, that you don't have the energy to do what it is that you want, right? But love gives back. Love is energizing. And it does take exertion, of course. And sometimes there's tension, sometimes it's not fun, but you expand. You expand in it. And so, love being selfless and abuse being selfish, selfishness comes from the fear that you will not have um what it is that you desire, right? Selfishness comes from this kind of, I need to get this and I don't care how I'm going to get it. It is destructive. It walks all over connection, right? And love is selfless because it's assured. When you are speaking the language of love, you are assured that you can be selfless because you have energy to spare. You always have, it's like always room for dessert, right? You always have room to be there for a friend. You always have room because when there's no other choice but to help each other, that's when you really learn your own strength. When there's no other choice but to love, that's when you understand there is no limit. You are the source. You are the source. And it's only a matter of your physical self catching up, but you are the source. So love is inside sourced. It says, I am enough right here. It's present. It's appreciative and understanding towards you. It's understanding that I am who I am and I don't have to prove anything to anyone. And it knows that true love won't take. True love gives back. And that's why connection is a two-way street, right? I create a path to you, you create a path to me. And that's why people who are speaking the language of abuse, who are so stuck in this mindset of abuse and this victim mindset and this selfishness, you can't reach them from the outside a lot of the time because anything that they get from the outside is like a drug that validates all of the abuse. It's like a drug. And what they really need is to reduce the infection from the inside. Abuse is an infection. And I often say that narcissists are like an infected tree, abusers are like an infected tree. And if the mother tree gives them any nutrients, they just kill the whole forest. It infects the rest of the forest. And so you need the mushrooms to communicate with the mother tree, hey, this tree is infected. Whereas normally those mushrooms would communicate, this tree needs nutrients, this tree needs this nutrient, this tree needs that nutrient. But when there's an infected tree, it communicates with the mother tree, cut it off. Cut it off. It's that simple. And if I had any evidence that you could reach these people from the outside, then I would use that evidence, right? Because I truly do care about the well-being of people. But abuse drains, and it will drain the most loving person until they do not have a sense of self anymore. It makes them insecure, and it makes them more arrogant, and it makes them burdensome because it's isolating in a way that like no one can reach a person who is having the soul sucked out of them. They have to choose it. And so both of these people, the soul sucker and the soul sucked, both have to make the choice of love. And this person has to choose to love themselves, and this person also has to choose to love themselves but also love other people. Right? Because that is abuse at its core, is the selfishness. It's choosing everything is kind of a trade, right? So in choosing your own well-being over someone else's, I'm talking about like when you have a choice to make someone else's life worse and you make your own life better. That's a bad trade-off, right? That's selfish because other opportunities will come up, and that is the language of love, is knowing that a better opportunity will arise when you say no to abuse, because love moves around. It's behind the scenes. It's in all of us, and it just kind of works in this weird magnetic way where sometimes you get what you need and other times you feel like the world is crashing down on you because you're not actually in control. Control is an illusion. But abuse says, I need control. I need control because I'm so scared that I'm not going to get what I need. And so abuse is controlling and it's manipulative. And when you choose the language of abuse, you are trading it for love. The two cannot coexist. You cannot be choosing abuse and love. Our consciousness, I've heard this before, our consciousness stays in one spot, right? And so when we're present, like, have you ever meditated and you're sitting there and you're present and you're breathing and you feel everything, and you have to make a choice of what to hold in that moment, right? You can't hold two things at once. You cannot hold destructive behavior and creativity at the same time. You can't hold presentness and appreciation and also be sinking in to this feeling of the past or the future scaring you, right? You can't be holding two things at once. Sometimes when we're stuck in this zone, we feel like we need to do this or do that. What you really need to do sometimes is just take a second, center yourself, and understand that the language of love, you speak it. You speak it, you know it, and it's there in your brain waiting to be realized. And a lot of generational trauma, I notice, gets realized. It gets awakened by what happens, by our circumstances, right? Things happen, and then all of a sudden you have all your family's feelings at once in your body, because you're waking up to this pathway that was not in your conscious. And abuse is very subconscious. Love is conscious. Love is free. It's disciplined, and therefore it is free. Because when you are speaking the language of abuse, you are urge oriented and you do not have the chemicals in your brain that help you resist. You have to choose resistance. All of these values, love is a practice. The language of love is something that you need to learn to speak fluently. It's within you, and there will be opportunities for you to grow in it. But that's also where the humility comes in, because you're going to find you're going to have to spend a lot of time perfecting it. And that's okay. You have to just be satisfied and appreciate what life gives you and the lessons that you receive. And you have to be responsible enough to know your own role in what you're playing, because we're all playing a game, right? And some people are playing the game of abuse, some people are playing the game of love. And playing the game of abuse is very addictive, and you do create these sort of you create a bunch of rules for yourself. And I think that's where the manipulation and the control comes into play, and also disconnection, because when you are living by all these rules and you don't feel assured enough to be free of these rules, you start to project them onto others. And you start to try and control the situation, and you can't stand seeing someone who's present and assured, because you are outside sourced, not inside sourced. And you have to learn how to connect with what's on the inside. And you do that through love. And abuse will always separate and disconnect you. It'll leave you confused, and it will leave you feeling needy and like nothing is ever enough. Because when you're in that mindset, nothing is enough. Nothing is enough when you are feeding into addiction. What's really loving is what's sustainable. And that takes a lot of choice, and it takes practice. It's a muscle. It's a muscle that you strengthen. And I see a lot of people get their chemistry hijacked. We work against our chemistry a lot of the times when we choose love. But I also believe that truly we are hardwired for it, because there's studies that show we need connection, we need validation, we need other people. And it's a beautiful thing to connect with other people, because when you bridge a gap with someone who's different than you through love, it might have tension and there might be some flaws mixed in there. But when you bridge that gap, you are both expanding and you're filling the gap of each other's tree, right? I talk about consciousness as kind of like a tree. Our minds are like these trees that, are just growing in all sorts of different directions. And I believe that through connection, we can all expand who we are, and love resonates on all levels. And so it's really cool to see how I'm very inspiration based. Like, I'm very like, I see something and it inspires me to create something new in my own way and like pull from that. And I'm just a person. It takes a lot of other people being themselves, stepping into themselves, being their best, most fashionable, most expressive self in order for me to feel like, oh, nice, I can express in that way too. I have permission now. We all kind of give each other permission to do things, but you can also give permission to abuse. You can also set a precedence of abuse, and that disconnects people. That disconnects people from themselves, because to stay connected to someone who's abusive means to disconnect from the self, to disconnect from love. You are trading yourself for love for them. But really it's all a self-harm exercise, because once you cross that barrier, this line here is the line of self-respect. If you cross it, you are no longer in the territory of love. You are now in the territory of abuse. And when you cross the line of self-respect to try and meet someone where they're at, they should have never made you cross that. That is not love. If they loved you, they would not make you cross it. They would see the way in which they are disconnecting you from yourself. And someone who really loves you would not want that for you. Someone who really loves you is respectful and considerate of how you feel. Connection is two-way. You have to meet them where they're at. Don't cross that. Don't cross that level of self-respect, because they also have the job to meet you where you're at. And that is very relieving, right? Because It takes some of the pressure off. Love is lighthearted. Abuse is heavy. It's heavy. It weighs so much. You can barely have fun. You can barely connect with anyone. You can't even feel good. It's heavy. It weighs. It weighs on you. Love is like a deep breath, and it feels light, and it feels like nothing else matters in the world besides this. And it's true. Nothing else does matter besides love and all the ways that it expresses itself. Nature is love. We are love. Fun is love. All this stuff. The thing about abuse and love is they can both be really exciting and really fun, but one trades love. Abuse trades love for the high. That's all it really is. It's simply addictive. That's why it's really hard for, a narcissist or an abuser to get out of, is because it's an addictive cycle. And so they're working against their chemistry more than anyone. And they've practiced. Oh, they've practiced. It's all they know. And so love, though, love is creative. Creativity is how you form a path to it. And it's hard, but easy because it gives back. And it's inside sourced. It's assured that what you have is within. And you understand that who you are is deep down. You believe. You're faithful. Abuse is very restrictive. It's constricting and it's regurgitative. It's not actually creative and self-expressive and expansive. Fear will leave you not doing any of the things that you want to do, right? And it won't teach you anything. Fear doesn't teach you anything. It's what takes bravery that teaches you things. And to step into the unknown because you're holding on to a value, that will always produce good results. If you pull a positive meaning from what you go through, it will yield positive results. And you will start to understand that what matters is how I show up every day in the present moment. You don't have to be stuck in the past. Those old narratives, okay, sure. There's physical stuff that takes a while to change. That doesn't mean that it won't. Show me, tell me one physical thing that has not changed. One. Just name one. It all changes. The physical realm is always changing. It's always creating, destroying. And it's us who can choose to create a better path. It's all in choice. We have free will and we have genius, intelligent minds. We're so smart that we create harmful cycles subconsciously. We don't even know that we're doing it. How are we that smart and we don't believe in ourselves? Come on, guys. We're genius. Admit it. Admit that you're a genius. We are. And we can tap into it consciously. Anything that you can do subconsciously and unconsciously, you can do consciously. And that's why love is hard but easy. Everything gets easier. And everything that you do consciously over and over and over becomes second nature. And that's what you want to be second nature. That's how you tap into your genius, is when you get so good at loving. When you speak the language of love fluently, it leaves so much room for creativity that it's not even a problem. You don't sink into that because you believe, you're so assured that whatever is happening in the present moment, you can make the most of it. And it gets real fun. It gets real fun, and you start to realize, I'm free. Through this discipline, through the hard became easy. Through the difficult became free. Through all of the moments became sustainability. So I want everyone to get good at speaking the language of love versus the language of abuse. I'll hold it up one more time so that you guys can see. I don't know if my handwriting is easy to read. Hopefully you can read it. But this is it right here. This is how I make sense of everything. This is how I gauge what it is I'm supposed to do right here. Because once you start to understand the language of love, you understand how to speak it with your actions. Get good at speaking the language of love towards yourself. Be compassionate. We're all physical beings working against our own chemistry at first. There's a lot of things to realize. There's a lot of ways to speak both of these languages. Self expression can go in so many different areas. That's why I have such a long list. I could have kept going. Because it's never ending. There's so many ways to describe love. And on the flip side, there's so many ways to describe abuse. Walk in love. That's where you'll find the most fun. That's where you'll find the most freedom, most connection. Your life will flourish with love. And it's scary, but it's fun. You know, I always say fear and excitement, two sides of the same coin. Anything that you're afraid of is leading you towards what will excite you. So if you're scared, just remember sometimes love flies right under the radar. It's very protective in that way. It will protect you. You will also feel protected because you know that you have gotten through and can get through anything that life throws at you. So you understand that you have strength. Be assured. Be assured in love and in who you are. And don't trade it. Sure, tension happens. Sure, it's hard to understand where another person is coming from. But trying to speak the language of love is going to expand you. Exert yourself for it. It will give back. That's all. That was a fun episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. I was just firing off on what I know. This is probably going to be my longest episode, but, you know, it's a lot to talk about. And this was a big topic for me. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed and that it brought some understanding or inspired you in some way and made things easier, perhaps, because that's really what I want out of these podcasts is to make it easier for you guys to understand how to be better for yourselves and for others and to better your experience, because speaking the language of abuse not only destroys you, it destroys everyone around you, but speaking the language of love benefits all. It benefits everyone. So it'll lift anyone's spirits, and you can do that. I believe in you. Have a good day. Bye bye.